Welcome to Occupy CCTV. And we're blessed, we really are blessed. Because what do we know, as you who follow the show understand, but we have Linda Jenkins, who's a dedicated member of Occupy Boston. How many times have you been now?
Oh, I can't count, but we're coming up on our 3rd month anniversary. And are very excited about that. And I've been involved with Occupy Boston since October 7th. That was the first time I went down.
And you were moved to go?
I had heard from friends, I think from Shelley, among others, about Occupy Boston. I hadn't known of it before, really, October 6th. And I went online that night and I stayed up quite late reading everything I could read about the Occupy movement and Occupy Wall Street and Occupy Boston. And I found the website for Occupy Boston and an email address to send them a message asking for what kind of help they might
Oh yeah,
need.
remember that, yes.
Yes, we talked a little bit
and
about that.
And the website is still up. We will take a look at it very soon,
Yep.
next to Michelle.
OccupyBoston.org is a terrific website.
So there's so many things to say, but or ask you, but tell us about what has happened when the police ended the camping there, yes?
Yeah, so we knew we had a 2-week grace period. We had filed a restraining order against the city and the police and the Greenway to allow us to stay in our occupation site, since many other occupations in New York and on the West Coast in particular had experienced sudden raids and been cleared suddenly and lost a lot of valuable property, and there were injuries. So we wanted to prevent that from happening. So we had volunteer lawyers from the National Lawyers Guild and American Civil Liberties Union, and also some private attorneys who have been helping us, representing us pro bono. And we did receive a temporary restraining order that was good for 2 weeks up until November 30th. And that day we had a hearing, and the judge said at the end of that hearing, I got to sit in on the last hour and a half of it, but she said that she would take the matter under advisement and then issue an order within 2 weeks. She allowed herself some days and said that it would be no longer than 15 days. So we were very jubilant at that point and knew that we had a little bit of a grace period. Her decision came down, I believe it was on the 7th of December, and that night we had a General Assembly, as we always do in the evening, and we decided that we were going to allocate some money to rent trucks if we couldn't get them for free, and move a lot of the valuable supplies and equipment off of the site because we didn't want it destroyed, as it has been in other sites. So the next day, Thursday, there was a lot of breaking up of the camp, and I went down and took photographs. It was very sad, really, because it had become quite a wonderful community in a number of ways. We were fairly sure we would be raided that night, and there were probably a couple of thousand people that came down.
And a wonderful community in many ways, for example?
Well, I've made a number of new friends, people who are very concerned about the state of our country and our world and the future of our children, and are dedicating many hours and many other kinds of resources to building this community that we shared at the site, and also in the activities that seem to radiate out of that coming together, that community of people.
And one activity that you particularly liked was?
Well, there have been a few. I've really enjoyed the direct actions, the marches, and connecting with other communities in the area, Ocupemos el Barrio and Occupy the Hood, many nonprofit organizations that are trying to serve the underserved people in our community. So I enjoy building bridges with those communities and getting to be more informed about issues that they're facing, and also just coming together with people, younger people, who are very concerned and also feeling very hopeful. The chant that I love, one of the chants that I love the most is "We are unstoppable, and another world is possible." And, you know, the fact that young people are saying in strong voices, "Another world is possible," it's kind of a miracle.
And they're living that world.
Yes.
They're not.
We're trying to live that world.
It's not the future.
No, that's right. We're trying to live it right now. And so there's, you know, we're very self-reflective on the power dynamics within this community and the voice of people that are usually not heard, women and people of color in particular, and people who are in gender, see themselves in gender identification ways that are not conventional and have been marginalized. So we're continually interacting within our community around these concerns, as well as trying to do outreach, you know, with the general public and to make ourselves intelligible to folks who aren't able to come down to our meetings yet, because we feel that the mainline press really has no incentive to find out the true story about us. After all, they're owned by corporations. And our story and our concerns don't fit conveniently into sound bites. We're concerned about a number of complicated issues that are all related to each other. One of the signs that I saw in one of our marches that I loved is "Too many issues for this sign." So I don't think it's that we're unfocused, it's that we are in fact very focused, but the things that need to be focused on are huge. And there's not going to be a silver bullet that's going to fix everything. That there's going to be there is a need for a number of actions and in a number of arenas simultaneously in order to get things back on the right track. So actually I wasn't there to go back to the story about
Yes.
about the camp. That Thursday that Thursday evening we were expecting to be evicted. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of people that were there. There was quite a party atmosphere. There was a lot of music and a lot of singing and dancing. At one point, occupiers spilled out into the street and sat down in the middle of Atlantic Avenue, and so the police blocked that off. But they did not raid that night. And then by the next night, there was a smaller number of people there, and it was not until 5 a.m. that morning, Friday morning, that they came in and cleared out people, and it was done not in a gentle, cooperative way, contrary to what the police have been saying, but they swooped in very suddenly, and there were a number of injuries and people who were treated harshly. We had a report that one female cop actually broke down crying, and her male colleagues were yelling at her to stop crying and then tried to hide her from the protesters. So it wasn't as well documented because the police were very deliberate in excluding the press before they came in, so that there were not the cameras documenting it as there had been the first time. But we had expected this, and we knew that it was just a matter of time. There were 46 people that were arrested, and there's been a lot of jail solidarity in greeting them when they were released, which was very quickly, actually. They were released by 7 o'clock the next morning, so they were not held very long this time around. But they experienced more severe charges. They were uniformly charged with resisting arrest, even though many of them offered, when they were told that we're going to be handcuffed, they offered their hands and they walked away as they were told to walk away. So those cases will be dealt with on a one-by-one basis with the lawyers that are representing us. God bless them. And we were ready. We had plans. We had made plans to show up at the courthouse the next morning after the raid, whenever it came. And we had decided previously that we would have an emergency General Assembly the next night at 7 p.m. at the bandstand in the Commons. So we had those contingency plans. And many of our working groups, at that time we had, I think, almost, 57, approximately 57 working groups. Many of them, probably all of them actually, were meeting off-site by that time, either in South Station or in the offices of various nonprofits that have hosted us, and also in some churches. So we knew that life would be different after having a central place that we could meet, and we're still sort of grieving over that and also getting reorganized to continue on, because our strength is still very present. We're determined that this is just another transformation. You can't evict an idea. So the idea is still very strong, and there's a lot going on. Today there were a couple of meetings about direct action, the kinds of direct action that people want to take. And yesterday there was a roadmap meeting, I believe it was yesterday, which is a sort of a strategic planning session for visioning where we want to go from here. And there are several churches that have offered space that we're using now for our General Assemblies, the St. Paul's Cathedral down on Tremont Street, the Emmanuel Church on Newberry Street, and the Arlington Church.
Yes.
So we're kind of cycling among the three of those for our General Assemblies, and tomorrow night we're going to have an open house. Everyone's invited, and that's going to be at St. Paul's Cathedral on Tremont Street at, I believe, at 6:30.
And this is very close to Tremont Park?
It is.
Yes.
It's just directly across the street from the Commons.
Yes.
Yeah, right near the Park Street T-stop.
Yep.
So it's pretty convenient. It's right downtown.
And when is that happening?
That's tomorrow at 6:30.
Monday, 6:30?
Yes, Monday at 6:30. So everybody's invited. We had a little General Assembly tonight in the community church on Boylston Street, and there were several newcomers there, as well as visitors from Occupy Albany and Occupy North Carolina, who were visiting in town and reported.
Oh, my.
Yeah, so it was wonderful to hear from them. And there's more and more people that are coming out. I think now that we're inside, the weather is not so much a factor. We were pretty uncomfortable outside there for a while.
Yes. So there's no place for people sleeping over now, is that true?
No, there is not a site. However, it's really touched my heart to see how this community has incorporated the houseless people that were part of the community at Dewey Square. And a number of people have just very quietly offered temporary shelter to people, their living room couches and that sort of thing. We have a little movement, a little program that's called Adopt an Occupier. And tonight we are passing around sheets, sign-up sheets, if you have a couch or if you have a spare room that you would feel comfortable hosting an occupier for a night or two or three. You can sign up and provide that. We recognize that not everybody's going to be comfortable with that, but there are a number of people who have taken folks into their homes, and it's wonderful to see. We're still trying to have food at all of our meetings because people also do need to eat, and so we're accepting donations. And you can go to the website and look at the calendar, which is a really good calendar, and then there's a daily digest that you can see where the daily events are going to be. So, we're asking people to bring food to these events to share.
Oh, it's like a potluck, yes.
Yeah, that's right, like a potluck, right.
Michelle, did you want to show?
Yeah,
Yes.
why don't I'll just
Show the website?
Show the website.
Yeah.
Here, I don't know. Hi. Let's see. We'll put the website on here. Okay. Well, camera and then computer. Okay. Well.
Maybe not.
I guess not. But that's
and
easy
it's not
enough.
this, huh? Not
It's,
three? You would know. Camera?
Computer. It's
Oh.
computer. Yeah. So.
No. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's
too
all
bad.
right. But
Yeah.
you can go to occupyboston.org, and it has a pretty interesting set of selections that you can find out what the events are that are going on and where to go to participate.
So, what are the hopes? What are the hopes, dreams, or plans? What are the direct actions that people are taking now?
Well, we're beginning to make plans for first night. We feel that first night is a good opportunity. There'll be a lot of people out. We recognize that the atmosphere will be one of celebration.
Yes.
And so we want to be visible and to share our message and be sort of consistent with the flavor of the times. So that's part of what was going on tonight with some of the planning for first night. And we'll be having at least one more meeting to formalize some of those things. One of the little charming kind of developments has been our desire to to honor the importance of the actual occupation and the tents. So people are beginning to, there's kind of a movement called the tiny tents. People are beginning to make tiny tents, sometimes out of old credit cards, sometimes out of paper or fabric, and I think very soon there will be online instructions to how to make a tiny tent out of paper so that people can make their own and write on it what you would like to see change, and put a little light in it and put it in your window.
Oh my!
Or decorate your Christmas tree or your holiday tree with tiny tents. So that's just one very small action that we want to continue to remember how important the site was for us, and for all the occupations. I think tenting is really important. On a more serious vein, we're really hoping to work with organizations like City Life Vita Urbana, which is a local community organization that focuses in part on foreclosures, unjust foreclosures, and so we're going to be, I think some of us will be showing up at some of these.
Oh my! I'd be interested in
learning more.
And joining that. Yes.
Oh, good. I think those are the kinds of things that I'm really interested in as well. They're more concrete, practical ways of being in solidarity with people who are actually experiencing the inequities of our economic system. Where the banks can write off bad mortgages and or bad loans, but
not only write off, get
bailed out. Exactly. But small human beings are, they're just treated the opposite. Just treated very unfairly and lose their homes. So that's one area that we're looking at. And I think there'll be other areas we want to sort of take our lead in some cases from community organizations that have been already working in the field, and we may not be as familiar with the circumstances, so we may not have the answers or the right courses of action, but we have energy and we have people, and we want to put them at the service of some of these issues that are long-standing.
We saw a very ingenious event. It's like a happening where Occupy people went to the Bank of America in Somerville.
Yes.
And had a video camera.
Yes, exactly.
And people were withdrawing
closing their bank accounts. Yes.
That's in a celebratory fashion.
Exactly. That's Occupy Somerville. So there are little occupations springing up. There's an Occupy JP. I've understood that there's an Occupy Alston. Certainly Occupy Harvard. The universities have their own Occupy. So at one point, I think just before or just after the eviction, we were gathered in a meeting to think about how we would go forward. And there was the image of the whack-a-mole game that you can play sometimes at a county fair or some of these places where you go to play games, where you hit, there's a mole that pops up on the floor and you hit it or step on it and then two of them pop up. And if you hit those down, then four of them pop up.
Yeah.
So that's how we see.
Hoping that this is that what
That's
might
how
be happening.
Yes, and I think it is happening. That's how we see it. You know, they've cleared this one spot, but then, you know, the energy is dispersed. And in a way, that's a good thing, because then it can spread out.
It would have been cold to stay there. It's very kind of them.
Well-
They created this great event.
Yes.
And you can be back in the spring somewhere.
Well, we were ready to be there. It was,
Yes.
you know, it was a sad thing to see that camp dismantled, and we were prepared to be there in a safe way with winterized tents, and meeting all of the concerns of the fire marshal and the police, all of the health and safety concerns. You know, if they had let us bring the supplies that we had and that we knew we needed, we could have had a very sustainable and safe camp. People do winter camping all the time.
Yes.
You know, so I mean, I think that it's too bad that the powers that be decided that we were too much of a threat to them to continue to be there. The Greenway was actually legislated to be an area for free speech.
Oh my.
And it's over a mile long, and we were on one tiny little parcel of it, so that there really was nothing lost to the Greenway by having us there, and certainly it was open to the public in any event. So
And a great cultural attraction for the city.
that's right, exactly,
Yeah.
it was. And in fact, we talked about having it be a museum of democracy, a living museum of democracy that people, and I brought a Sunday school class down from the Quaker meeting that I attend, and we went down on a Sunday morning, and some of the kids actually went to the sign tent and made a big sign, and they didn't have to ask, they knew what to draw. They made a big sign of a bank on one side, and all this money going into the bank, and
Yeah.
over here they made pictures of houses with wings that were flying away from the people, that the houses were being taken away from
right.
people. So they really knew, they got the message, and they put it up on the wall. And we also got to go together to the Faith and Spirituality tent, which is also a very important place to me. And that morning when they came, there was a meditation service going on. It was kind of a Dharma talk. So we just crawled inside the tent and participated in this.
With the children?
Yeah, the children and
Yeah.
the adults that came, and me as sort of the guide. We all went inside and sat for about 15 or 20 minutes to participate in the Dharma talk. So they got to see what it was about and how it functioned, and so that's what we were. That's our intent of creating the entity was an expression itself. It's not that it was a place to give expression, but that the community itself was an expression.
Yes, was what you're wanting.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So the unfortunate thing is that it's the only place that you're allowed to camp in Boston is on the Harbor Islands, and of course that's not anywhere near the public, especially in the winter.
Yes.
So there really wasn't an alternative as far as looking at another place to set up an encampment. And plus it was just important to be in the shadow of the Federal Reserve Building and Bank of America. So stay tuned. Go to the website. I mean, it's a wonderful source of information.
And it's occupyboston.org.
Yeah.
And, so those will be the events happening.
Yeah.
So what are some of the events? So one of the event is the helping people who are having their property foreclosed.
Well, yes, and I actually there's if you go to the website, there's actually a rally tomorrow at noontime that's focusing on that issue. There's a lot of things going on.
And the rally is where?
I'm not going to be able to tell you.
Oh, but we can find it
Yes,
by boston.org.
yeah, it's on the calendar.
And we just have 2.5. Thank you so much for this.
Yes, you're
Now,
welcome.
do people think in terms of this is of course an election year coming up? Do people think in terms of that?
Yes, there is some thinking about that. In fact, the folks from North Carolina tonight were sharing the fact that the Democratic Convention will be in North Carolina, and they were inviting us to consider participating with them and planning for something to take place during that. And we've also been contacted by Occupy New Hampshire, which is getting prepared for the primary, New
Yes.
Hampshire primary. So we generally, Occupy Boston has really stayed clear of electoral politics, that there's no one view. We don't all have the same view on electoral politics or on anything. But I think a lot of us feel that we generally, there are 6 1/2 of the other. And that generally we're choosing the worst of the bad choices that were offered.
Or the best, but the best of the bad choices.
Right. And so, there's not a lot of buy-in, I guess I would say.
Or desire to run
to spend energy,
alternative
right, or
people.
desire to run alternative people, because
Yeah.
the system itself is
It's very
flawed. But that being said, there are a number of people who recognize that it can make a difference, and it's important to participate every which way we can.
Yes.
So there will be more actions taken. We do respect a diversity of tactics. So if individuals feel moved, who have come together through Occupy Boston to support a particular candidate, they certainly are free to do that.
Don't you just love Occupy after listening to Linda? Didn't it just open your heart in the coldest day of the year?
Well, I love Occupy
Yes,
Boston.
and we can feel it. You can feel it now. This wasn't just all the information. You can feel the love for Occupy.
Yes.
So come and join us.
Yes, indeed.
When you are moved to. Thank
Yes.
you so much. And you have 14 seconds if you have any last words to say.
No, I think that's what I would say is come. Tomorrow is the open house at St. Paul's Cathedral. It's very easy to get to, and come check us out. Come and visit.
And that time
what
again
time?
is?
6:30 tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow
Thank you.
evening.
Oh,
yeah,
you were
thank
wonderful.
You. Thank you.
Oh, my.